Apparently Stephenie Meyer's vampires are like penguins. They mate for life. Hello everyone, my name is Bethany and this is my channel, Bethany's Thoughts. I've been reading it. I decided maybe I was just going to do another vlog review type of thing that I did with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes for this. And so, and that would be, of course, Midnight Sun. There you go. So I'm actually 184 pages into this. I'm just getting to the Port Angeles scene. He just saved her in Port Angeles, and I'm just getting to the scene where they have dinner together, and I kind of stopped there because the car ride is one of my favorite scenes, and I wanted to really savor and enjoy that. For those who don't know, Midnight Sun is the book of Twilight that is set from Edward's point of view instead of Bella's. I've reread Twilight last month, or July, I believe. I can link my review of my vlog of Twilight up above, and you can see what my thoughts were about that. And you know what? I am actually very proud to say that a lot of the things that I predicted were from Edward's point of view is actually what is happening in Midnight Sun. And I feel very proud of myself for like guessing a lot of the things that he was going to be thinking. So here's the thing. This is an angsty boy that cares a lot about Bella's life and her fact that she is alive, and that he is like, you know, he obviously sees himself as this demonic, you know, lesser than character because of what he is, which is what I predicted would be the case of what his struggles are. Right now, we have a very angsty boy who's slowly realizing that he's falling in love with Bella, and it's kind of cute and it's kind of sweet to see. He's kind of angsty about it because he thinks he's lesser than, he doesn't deserve her, which I always thought Edward was going to think just from the way that he and the things that he's told her before. So that wasn't surprising. What is surprising is I've seen a lot of reviews and I've seen a lot of comments. I haven't watched a lot of the videos that have come out about this, but I've seen a lot of people talk about, you know, Edward being somewhat of a demisexual. For those who don't know, demisexuals are those who don't feel sexual attraction unless they have a very strong emotional attraction. And that can be fluid. Sometimes that can be both genders, all genders, or one specific gender. A lot of people have been saying that, you know, this book kind of shows Edward as a demisexual, which I can kind of see, oddly enough. I didn't think that would be the case, but yeah, he really starts to notice things about Bella and her personality than necessarily her looks. And all the things that he likes about Bella are, you know, more of her personal qualities. And in doing so, he's starting to fall for her in that way because she doesn't respond as a typical human would in his perspective. So it's kind of sweet to see, but it's also very angsty, and he's also a little bit obsessive. Which we already know, because we know that he like climbs in her room and watches her sleep for several months before she ever finds out. I'm liking it. It's just a lot. It's very wordy. I will say that I think Stephenie Meyer's come a long way as a writer. Definitely. I mean, this is what, her sixth book? Sixth? Fifth? Sixth? I mean, she did the 4 Twilight books, The Host, and this is her 6th, but she's probably like published or been working on writing other projects. So this might be her 6th or 7th or maybe 8th book or work that she's worked on. And her writing's definitely improved. The writing's a lot stronger because she's written more work since then. This was the first book she ever wrote, and first books are not always the best. So the writing's gotten a lot better, which I appreciate. It's just very wordy. There's a lot of words. It's kind of fun to be, like I said, even though I read Twilight, I've been kind of tandem reading a little bit, because there's in Midnight Sun, there's a lot of scenes. We're seeing some new scenes that we didn't see before, which is kind of nice, but we're also seeing the scenes from his perspective of scenes that they have already had together in Twilight. So I kind of like going through to Twilight just to see what her perspective is in the moment, and then going back and forth. And she obviously wrote them very, very close together and paid very close attention to her dialogue and to Bella's reactions and everything like that, and integrates them in Midnight Sun, which I can really appreciate. That takes a lot of writing and skill, for sure. The excerpt that we got from Midnight Sun is very different than what this has turned out to be. besides the typical fact of this being just a book from Ezra's perspective, I think that the tone and the writing itself is very different than the excerpt we got 10 years ago, which I can also very much appreciate because it really means that she took the time and she took the care to write it well, and also that she was able to reinvent herself from that. Years and years ago, I dabbled in writing. I haven't written anything in a very, very long time. But when I used to write, the fact of someone leaking your work, I could see how devastating that could be for a writer, and then not wanting to pick it up again. I could see that, and I could totally understand it as a creative person. And so the fact that she was able to physically go back to it, much less actually really reinvent it and reinvigorate it and make it her own again, I think that's an admirable thing for a writer to be. And, and she did a good job at doing that. A couple other things. So funny. In my original Twilight blog, I talked about why did I always think Jessica was a mean girl? She's not that bad. Yada, yada, yada. Oh my God, she's totally a mean girl. And I was right. And I feel so validated. That made me feel a lot better about myself. I don't know why. Because in my Twilight vlog, I talked about I just mentioned in passing Jessica's character and how much I despised her when I read Twilight the first time, because I just picked up the whole mean girl, backstabby, two-facing vibe. But then I was rereading Twilight, I was like, no, now, several years later, I was like, no, she's not that bad. I was just pushing my own opinions on her, what I thought she was. And no, now reading Edward's thoughts, she really is that bad. And I feel very validated for that my first instinct was right. That my mean girl radar is still working just fine. It's still a lot, and there's still angsty things. And I think that he does get to a point where he just obsesses so much about her life and her being alive than listening to what she actually wants, which is really, really frustrating. And that happens later in the series. I can't say I'm necessarily enjoying it. I don't know how I really feel about it, but I can't say I'm not hating it. And I can say that it's interesting. And those who are fans of Twilight would absolutely love this book. And I definitely feel like it's for the fans of the book who read the original when they were in their teens. For sure. They have grown up and become adults at this point. That's been 15 years ago. And so now a lot of the people are reading this as adults. I don't know if necessarily, I know it's technically classified in YA because it's part of the Twilight series. I don't know if I'd necessarily rate this YA because it is very darker in tone. That's my thoughts so far. We'll see where it goes from there. I will definitely come back and keep you updated in the future. Until next time. And I'm back. Hello. So I'm at about 300 now of Midnight Sun. So a couple things that I kind of wanted to mention that I didn't get a chance to in the first part. So when it comes to Stephenie Meyer's way of describing vampires, I always kind of suspend my belief a little bit because how she writes vampires is really not how vampires are. Traditional vampires cannot go in dust daylight. Traditional vampires cannot cross into homes. There's a whole lot of things that I suspend my belief about Stephenie Meyer's vampires. I feel like Stephenie Meyer's vampires are something else as opposed to real fictional vampires. One of the things that is obvious coming from this reading of this book is that, as I kind of mentioned before in the first part of this, is, Edward is, kind of seeming to portray a little bit of a demisexual representation. Also seems to, this is his first time falling in love with someone, which is really sweet and also a little bit intense. I'm not going to say that he's a little bit kind of obsessive about her. It's obviously a little bit portraying that he's never done anything with anyone else since he became a vampire, maybe even died as a virgin. That's what it's seeming to imply, which is interesting, that he kind of hasn't been a sexual being until he's met her and feeling these feelings, which I don't necessarily think that vampires in other books that I have read are necessarily like that. There's plenty of vampires getting it on, doing other things. Apparently Stephenie Meyer's vampires are like penguins. They mate for life. I guess. That's how I'm like putting it in my head, that she is writing them like they're penguins and they mate for life. So Edward hasn't fallen in love until this point. Now he's met Bella. He's fallen in love. And now there's actually desire there, which he clearly expresses that he hasn't felt in a very long time. Which is something sweet and also kind of weird. And also, I think it's supposed to make their love a little bit more innocent, I guess. But at the same time, it's like, do we really believe that? Do we? Like, Edward also makes it clear that he's had offers. So, I don't know. Again, I like to suspend my belief a little bit. But that's what she's making it sound like it is between for him. Whatever. Okay. Apparently Edward died a virgin and now he's finally feeling desire again for the first time in his non-life. Sure. Whatever. I also wanted to say it's nice seeing a lot more of the Cullens in this book and getting more of their perspective and how they're feeling about things. It reminds me of how much I disliked Rosalie. I think I liked Rosalie better in the movies than I liked her in the books. The books, she was just super annoying, and this is no exception. But it reminds me of how much I actually really liked the Cullens in the later book, because I didn't reread any of the later books. I just reread Twilight, which you don't get a lot of the Cullens in Twilight, so it was kind of nice to, so Midnight Sun's kind of nice for that. You get a lot more of the Cullens, obviously, and just how much I like Alice, and how much I remember that I like Jasper, too. So, and Carlisle. Carlisle's the best. Anyway, I think that's it for now. Yeah, I have page 300. They're about to have the scene in the meadow, which is one of my favorite scenes, and it'll be really, really, really interesting to see the meadow scene from his perspective. Enjoying it so far. It's just kind of, it's a little bit difficult to plod through just because it's repetitive. But there's like scenes and parts and things here and there that are a little bit different. So that's kind of nice. And I don't dislike his perspective. It's just a little bit repetitive because it's about scenes that we've already read before. And it's kind of new because it's from his perspective, but it's also kind of not in this weird way. I hope that makes sense. And it's just a lot. It's through it's like 600 and something pages. It's just a lot. I think it seemed totally unnecessary to have this be as much as it is. And it'll be very, very interesting. Very, very interesting to see, though, what happens when the other vampires show up and Bella's life gets threatened. Like, what Edward's perspective and what he does during those scenes will be really, really interesting. So that's thoughts. There you go. More thoughts later. So here I am, several months later, trying to wrap up this Midnight Sun vlog. I obviously didn't want to do this. Finally wrap this up because I didn't want to talk or think about this book anymore. But I want to wrap up this vlog. I still want to post this vlog. So here we go. My final rating for Midnight Sun was 2.5 stars. I didn't dislike the book. I think I like Twilight better at the end of the day, but I like Bella because I like Bella better. Own personal preference. However, I do think that Stephenie Meyer's writing has gotten better, whether I like her style or not. Not really. I think there was a lot of repetitive scenes, which I liked that sometimes and also disliked it at other times. I will say that I think if the Edward Midnight Sun book had come out closer to Twilight, I probably would have loved it. Because at that time, I really still appreciated Twilight. 12 years later, not so much. Did I really need this story? And now there's talk of her maybe even doing another one. I hope not. I don't know if I want to read that one. Edward is an emo vampire boy, and there's only so much time that I can spend. There's only so much time that I can spend in that headspace without being like, I totally need a different perspective from someone, anyone. I will say I did think that there was a lot of things. You see a lot more of the Cullens in this book as compared to the first book in the series, which I really did appreciate because I still like the Cullens. I think there was a few scenes that were different than I expected, but mostly his perspective, as I predicted, as I said earlier in this vlog, I predicted all the things he was going to think about this relationship. And he continues to do so and be really controlling in that throughout the rest of the series. That Belle can't make her own mind, which is so frustrating. But I still have to applaud Stephenie Meyer. She follows her original transcript of Twilight extremely closely. That does take some skill. I think that there was a lot of things that she still did well. Do I want to read the story again? Absolutely not. It was just a little bit too dense for me, too much, too repetitive. I just wanted to get out of his headspace. If we went back and did a book just about Alice, I probably would really appreciate that and like that a lot. So Alice, I remembered how Alice was definitely one of my favorite characters from the whole series, and Rosalie is still the worst. I think at the end of the day, I really admire her for being able to go back and finish it and complete it and write the story that she wanted to write, despite the fact that her earlier draft was leaked, which no writer should go through, honestly, period. I definitely respect that. So bravo to her on doing that. But I think with this, you should just let the series die. It's okay. The series has not aged well. So it can die a happy death and let it do that, and that will be fine. I hope that's what happens. It doesn't look like what's going to be the case. In any case, also, was Edward a demisexual? I'm going to say maybe. I think it's quite likely. I think there's definitely attributes of demisexual in the story of how he falls in love with Bella. So I'm going to argue it's a strong possibility. That's why I lie on that debate. I was just really relieved to finish it at the end of the day. The last 200 pages was a little bit rough for me to get through, just because I just couldn't be in his headspace anymore. Just for me, I just couldn't do it anymore. I was just like, exhausted of being in his self-flagellation headspace. I powered through it. I got through it, and I was very, very happy to be done. And I don't know if she comes out with another Twilight book, if I'm going to read it. I don't know. We'll find out. And that is it for this vlog. I'm done. Hopefully I never have to think or talk about Midnight Sun for a long, long while. And that is it. I'm going to wrap up this vlog. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below what you thought of Midnight Sun, or your thoughts, or if you agreed on any of the insights or things that I thought about it. I would really appreciate knowing anybody else's thoughts on the book and if they liked it or not. And if you want to see more bookish things from me, go ahead and give me a subscribe and hit bells so you can make sure to see my videos when they pop up on your feed, as well as likes are much appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!